I'm Tim Goldstein, and I have autism. I have actually Asperger's. And my goal really to help explain here is the perspective of somebody that has Asperger's of how all this stuff works. And you're going to find out it's way different than some of the things you're going to sound about looking at it the other way. You know, traditionally, we've always gone and studied autism by observation, which was a wonderful way to study autism when we thought it was a childhood disease. But we found out now it's a human condition. So we have adults that have autism. So instead of doing that, why don't we go out and ask the chicken why it crossed the road? Because guess what? I can tell you why I did it. When I started out doing this kind of thing and speaking as somebody autistic, it was really lucky that I was actually a very good writer because I wrote first. And my presentation skills and my speaking skills were, well, horrible would be making it nice kind. So I knew that I needed to go out and learn how to be able to engage and you know, interact with an audience very well in order to do what I wanted to do, which is I was going to tell my perspective whether you asked about it or not. So I went out and found who are the best communicators in the world. It's Hollywood. You remember exactly what you saw. I went and trained with the best vocal coach in the world, and he taught me a method that I call emotional speaking, of how to put emotion into my voice even though I'm not feeling it. We've all seen these kind of pictures, you know, where different people will see different kinds of things in the picture. Well, welcome to neurodiversity. Right now, we're all looking at the exact same input. But some of us right now, if you take the right one, are living in the land of frogs, and other of us are in the world of horses. So I have this concept around neurodiversity that, to me, the continuum model that we always talk about is so broken and useless that it should have been burned years ago. And I refer to it as the neuro cloud. So the easiest way to explain the neuro cloud is, just think of this cloud that has a whole bunch of glitter and confetti floating around, and each one is representing a way that a human can perceive and process the world. So if we were going to kind of do some grouping and, you know, all this great study stuff that you do to figure out different groups and such, we'd end up with one fairly large group, and we'd refer to that as neurotypical. Nothing special, nothing unique, they're just more of them. And then anything outside of neurotypical we refer to as neurodiverse. And the difference really is in how they think. Now, the wonderful thing about this model compared to the continuum is you can have a mixture. You can be mostly neurodiverse but have some neurotypical traits and vice versa. So it gives much more flexibility, which guess what? Actually matches what autistic people are like. We're not all the same in all the same areas. One idea is to give you an idea of how different neurotypical from neurodiverse works is, I, as an autistic person, tend to eat the exact same thing all the time. Very common habit. And I was on this kick for this particular potato bread. My wife and I would go shopping, and I'd walk in the aisle, and I'd be looking up and down, reading all the labels, trying to find my potato bread. And she'd inevitably go, "Oh, honey, it's right there." And I'd get it and put it in the cart. Year and a half later, I finally asked her. I'm a guy, so it took a year and a half. And how do you do that? And she said, "Oh, it's really easy. I just look for that orange logo on the end." You know, here I thought all the information was in the text. She was just looking for an orange logo. Completely different pattern of how we thought and how we perceived the world. And in this case, I hate to admit it, hers was way better. To make that neurocloud concept into something that could be tangible and useful, I went and created the neurocloud indicator, which I call them the interactional indicators. So it's not diagnostic, it's just kind of all these different things that if you had an interaction, would it be good or bad, and kind of rate just on that. And if you look on the charts on the right, that's how it kind of comes out, and these actually happen to be my personal charts. And if we look at the communication one, the way you interpret it, like normal radar chart, you know, more blue, more difficult, higher number, you can see that I have some extreme struggles in communication, which you're probably sitting there going, how can you be standing in front of a group like this talking comfortably to them if you're autistic and have problems? Well, guess what? There's the outward communication stuff. I don't have a problem in outward communication. I couldn't read your faces and your body language, though, to save my life. Another big problem that often happens when you're dealing with people who are neurodiverse is our social, our emotional, our sensory scales tend to be far less granular than a neurotypical. So let's just say as a neurotypical, you've got a 1 to 10 range for how you feel about something. Well, we tend to be very binary. I got a 1 or I got a 10, and I don't have anything in between. So you can see how that can become confusing. My manager comes to me and says, hey, something's like important, you need to do it. It's a, and to them it's a 6, which means it's important, but it's not a fire. To me, it's all the same. It's an emergency. Now, when you use the term, which I hate, high functioning, I would prefer to use the term that says high interactional alignment, meaning the way I work happens to match where I am. Well, high interactional alignment kind of looks like this. I have 3 buckets instead of only 2. I've got, it's great, it's horrible, and I have friggin' no clue what's going on in the middle. But again, they don't translate, back and forth. Well, people always ask, a neurodiverse communication specialist, what the heck do you actually do? Well, besides a bunch of things written up there, essentially what I do is I help the neurotypicals in a company understand the thought processes that go on with the neurodiverse, so you can understand why they do what they do, not just say, so-and-so's a jerk. And conversely, I teach the neurodiverse through using both rules and concept-based things, which us neurodiverse are really good at following rules and concepts, of how to communicate with the neurotypicals so that you can now have effective communication. So we don't end up with projects that have 16 people between who ordered it and who's building it, and we never get the right thing because we played the telephone game. And then last but not least, hey, I always think you should have a gift for everybody. So if you go to that website right there in the top, and it is case sensitive, unfortunately, I have my advanced tips for the manager of the neurodiverse, the coworker of the neurodiverse, and then my paper I call the Uncanny Valley, Autism's Uncanny Valley, which covers a lot more about the actual neurocloud concept and explains it in much more detail. I look forward to all the questions you have, and I'm looking forward to what a lot of the panel has to say. Thank you.